Jorge Lorenzo versus team orders. There are moments in MotoGP where a rider ignores the pit board, ignores strategy, ignores the championship, and rides for one thing only. Ego Sepang 2017 is the one moment Ducati still can't fully talk about without shaking their heads. Ducati were in a once-in-a-decade title fight. Andrea Dovizioso, the quiet assassin, had dragged the red bike into a championship showdown against Marc Marquez. Every point mattered, every mistake mattered, and the team had one last weapon. Jorge Lorenzo, on a massive salary, finally showing real pace at the end of a nightmare season. With 5 laps to go, Ducati sent a message to Lorenzo, suggested mapping 8. Everyone in MotoGP knew what that meant. Let Dovi through, don't fight him, don't risk anything. But Lorenzo wasn't wired that way. For him, Sepang wasn't about Ducati's title hopes. It wasn't about team unity. It wasn't even about repaying the factory that had protected him through a miserable year. It was about proving he still mattered, proving that even after struggling for months, he could still win races, proving that Ducati's biggest signing ever wasn't a mistake. So when the pit board flashed the order, Lorenzo looked at it and kept going. Another lap, another sector, another refusal. He defended, attacked corner exits, positioned his bike with precision, anything to keep Dovizioso behind. You could almost feel the air freezing in the Ducati garage. The mechanics weren't breathing. Gigi Dall'Igna stood frozen with a mix of fury and disbelief. Lorenzo was fighting his own teammate, like he was fighting for a championship. Behind them, Marquez was closing in. Exactly the nightmare Ducati had begged Lorenzo to avoid. Dovi finally lunged past in the braking zone, only because Lorenzo overcooked a corner trying to maintain the lead. But the damage was done. Ducati had been forced into a frantic last-lap scramble. Instead of a controlled team play, Dovizioso won the race. But the takeaway wasn't joy, it was shock. Lorenzo's decision made one thing clear. He wasn't racing for Ducati. He wasn't racing for the title. He was racing for himself. Inside the team, that day became the symbol of Lorenzo's lone wolf identity, a moment where Ducati realized that even when millions were on the line, even when the championship was on the line, Jorge would not sacrifice a win, not even for his teammate, not even for the greater cause. It was selfish, electrifying, and unforgettable. Danilo Petrucci versus Dovizioso. Mugello isn't just a race for Ducati. It's a pilgrimage. The hills vibrate red. The fans scream until their throats crack. A Ducati win at Mugello is more than a trophy. It's a national event. That's what made 2019 such an emotional storm. Danilo Petrucci, the lovable outsider who spent years on satellite bikes, finally earned his dream factory seat. Mugello was his home race. His mother was in the stands crying before lights out. His hometown had hung banners across the streets, and he had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to win in front of them all. But in that same race, his teammate, Andrea Dovizioso, was deep in a title fight against Marc Marquez. Every point mattered. If Petrucci could help control Marquez, create space, or even allow Dovi through at a key moment, Ducati's title dream stayed alive. Instead, Petrucci rode like a man possessed, not a teammate, not a strategist, not a factory soldier. In the final laps, when the pack of Dovi Marquez rins tightened into a fistfight, Petrucci didn't protect Dovi. He didn't shield him. He didn't position the bike to give his teammate the toe or corner advantage. He blocked him aggressively, repeatedly. Dovi tried to line up the pass into turn 1. Petrucci squeezed him. Dovi tried again on the back straight. Petrucci closed the door. Every move Dovi made was shut down by his own teammate, while Marquez shadowed them like a shark waiting for chaos. The final lap became a cage match. Petrucci launched the winning attack into the final sector, slicing between Marquez and Dovi in one of Mugello's most iconic overtakes. He crossed the line first, a fairy tale moment. Mugello exploded, but the Ducati pit box didn't explode with joy. They froze, because everyone knew what those 3 lost points meant. Dovi finished 3rd, Marquez finished 2nd, and across the season, those exact points became part of the margin that handed the title to Marquez. Petrucci defended himself, saying, "I had to win today. It was my life dream." And that was the truth. He wasn't thinking about Ducati's millions at stake. He wasn't thinking about Dovi's title. He wasn't thinking about team strategy. He was thinking about one thing: his name in the history books. It was beautiful, it was emotional, and it was selfish in the purest form. Rossi versus Gibernau. Every MotoGP fan knows the last corner at Jerez. But 2005 wasn't just a race. It was the moment where Valentino Rossi declared psychological war on Sette Gibernau. Their rivalry had been boiling since 2004. Gibernau believed Rossi played dirty politics. Rossi believed Sette wanted to dethrone him. Jerez was round one of this tension exploding last lap. Sette leads. Rossi stalks him like a shadow, planning something the entire world felt coming but couldn't predict. Into the final corner, Gibernau takes the normal defensive line. Rossi dives from a distance that made commentators gasp. It wasn't a calculated attempt at a clean pass. It was a statement disguised as a braking maneuver. He braked late. Very late. Too late. The Yamaha slid past the apex, completely offline, straight into Gibernau, bulldozing him off track into the runoff area. Rossi muscled his way to the inside and forced Sette into the gravel while he powered out to take the win. The crowd erupted. Sette didn't. He walked away shattered. No penalty, no warning, no reprimand. Hard racing, race direction said. But the paddock whispers said the truth. Rossi had just ended Sette's belief. Gibernau never won another race after that. He was broken mentally, and everyone knew why. Rossi didn't need those extra 5 points that day. He needed Sette to understand something far more important. You will not beat me. Not here, not anywhere, not ever. It was the most psychological victory MotoGP had ever seen. Selfish, ruthless, and era-defining. Marc Marquez. Some races burn themselves into MotoGP memory, not because of victory, but because of pure chaos. Argentina 2018 wasn't a race. It was a one-man demolition run starring Marc Marquez at his most unstoppable, unfiltered, and unapologetically selfish. A day when one rider's hunger for redemption exploded into a series of choices that turned the entire paddock against him. It started with the stall. On the grid, seconds before lights out, Marquez's RC213V shut off. Panic. Mechanics sprinted away. Marc pushed the bike backward against the marshal's orders, fired it, and rejoined the grid illegal. Clear as day, but the desperation in his body language said everything. He was determined not to lose the race before it began. Losing track position? Unthinkable. Following rules? Optional. Race direction slapped him with a ride-through penalty. But to Marquez, this was just an obstacle to a race. He emerged from pit lane almost dead last, and that's when the storm began. He passed riders like he was in an entirely different race. Aggressive dives, insane braking zones, contact that felt personal. First victim, Alex Espargaro. Marquez lunged in from a galaxy away, clipped him, pushed him off the line. Alex threw his hands in the air, but the universal, "What are you doing?" gesture. But Marc had already gone. Then came the big one, the headline, the moment that would define the year. Valentino Rossi. The old rivalry resurfacing like a dormant volcano, erupting violently. Marquez dove into Rossi with a move so rushed, so forceful, Rossi never even had the chance to react. The Yamaha was punted wide into soaking wet grass, the most dangerous surface on the track, and Rossi went down. The crowd booed. Rossi's fans erupted. Even neutral fans stared in disbelief. And yet, Marc didn't stop. No slowing, no apology, no hesitation. He simply twisted the throttle and blasted into the next corner like nothing happened. By the final lap, race control had made their decision. A 30-second penalty, dropping him out of the points. But those numbers didn't matter. Marc's actions had ignited a war that overshadowed results. In the Yamaha garage, Rossi shook with fury. He destroyed our sport today. It wasn't the collisions alone. It was the feeling that Marquez believed the rules didn't apply to him, that his comeback, his narrative, his redemption was more important than the safety of the riders around him. The Argentina 2018 GP became the textbook example of selfishness fueled by raw pace. A rider so good, so fast, so fearless. He pushed past every boundary that normally keeps riders civilized. Marc sprinted through that race like the hero of his own movie, regardless of who got hurt in the process. Johann Zarco versus Franco Morbidelli. The Red Bull Ring is terrifying even on a good day. It's the fastest circuit on the calendar, a place where riders hold their breath, tuck in, and trust that the rider ahead won't make a move that could kill them both. But in 2020, Johann Zarco shattered that trust in one split-second high-speed decision that nearly led to one of MotoGP's darkest tragedies. Zarco and Morbidelli were locked in a duel down Spielberg's lethal backstraight. Both were doing over 300 kilometers per hour. Mere inches separated them. And that's when Zarco made the move that shocked the world. He darted right, sharply, abruptly, aggressively, directly in front of Morbidelli's braking zone. At that speed, lead, you don't react. You either survive or you don't. Morbidelli had nowhere to go. His Yamaha slammed full force into the back of Zarco's Ducati. Both riders were launched into the air, tumbling across asphalt like rag dolls. Then came the nightmare. Both riderless bikes rocketed toward turn 3, the exact racing line Rossi and Viñales were entering at full throttle. Two 150-kilogram missiles slicing across the track. Rossi's eyes beneath the visor widened in shock. The bike missed his head by inches. Viñales ducked instinctively for a moment. Every journalist in the media center went silent. It was almost the worst accident in MotoGP history. When Zarco returned to the paddock with a bandaged wrist, he insisted he had done nothing wrong. Morbidelli called it almost criminal. Rossi said the move was the shadow of something horrible. Race Direction reviewed the footage. They saw the sudden line change. They saw the reckless risk. They saw the consequences. They handed Zarco a penalty, a pit lane start for the next race. But the real punishment was the global backlash. Because in that moment, Zarco didn't ride like a competitor. He rode like a man who valued track position more than human life. And the paddock never forgot it. Danny Pedrosa takes out Nicky Hayden. If you want to understand selfishness in its purest, most heartbreaking form, you look at Estoril 2006, the day a rookie destroyed the dream of one of the sport's most beloved riders. Nicky Hayden entered that race leading the World Championship. He had spent the entire season fighting tooth and nail against Valentino Rossi. Riding a Honda that wasn't the fastest, but was willing to bleed for him, Hayden was the underdog hero, the blue-collar fighter from Kentucky who won hearts with humility, not ego. His teammate, Danny Pedrosa, the golden child of Repsol Honda, a prodigy, a future multi-time champion, according to everyone in orange. And yet, none of that mattered in the braking zone at turn 6. Hayden and Pedrosa ran close. Too close, Hayden ahead, Pedrosa behind. As they leaned into the corner, the rookie made a decision he would regret for the rest of his career. He dove in, braking later than he ever had, trying to force a pass that no one expected, no one asked for, and no one needed. The front washed. Pedrosa slid into Hayden. Both bikes went flying. A hush fell over the paddock. The cameras zoomed in on Hayden kneeling in the gravel, hands on his helmet, the disbelief written across his face in slow motion. Not taken out by Rossi, not taken out by a rival, but by his own teammate. In the garage, Honda personnel melted into the background. Pedrosa walked in with the expression of a man who had just detonated his own future relationship with the team. Hayden's championship lead was gone. His dream nearly shattered. The paddock roasted Pedrosa for weeks. The internet crucified him. Fans never forgot it. Even Danny, years later, would still mention Estoril as one of the moments that scarred him, because no matter how many podiums you score, no matter how many titles you collect, there will always be one question. Why risk everything? Your teammate, your team, your championship for a move that only served your ego. Luckily, Hayden pulled off a miracle at Valencia to win the championship, but the betrayal of Estoril became one of the most defining images of MotoGP selfishness. Casey Stoner versus Ducati. When riders talk about the Desmos Adichie era before Bagnaia, they always mention one thing. It was a beast, unruly, violent, a motorcycle that chewed up careers like snacks. Except for one rider, Casey Stoner. He was the man who made the impossible look effortless. But in 2009, the magic cracked. Stoner was suffering. Crashes, mystery illness, arm pump, fatigue, mental exhaustion. Results dipped. The bike's twitchiness worsened. And instead of working internally with Ducati's engineers, Stoner went nuclear in public. Race after race, interview after interview, he blamed the chassis, the electronics, the development direction, the engineer's decisions, and the entire philosophy of the bike. To the outside world, it looked like honesty. Inside Ducati, it felt like betrayal. This wasn't quiet feedback during debriefs. This was Stoner standing in front of cameras and telling the world the Ducati was unrideable. The same bike hundreds of Ducati staff had spent years building around him. His words hit them harder than any crash. Every time he said, "Only I can ride this thing," it landed like a strike at their competence. From the engineer's perspective, Stoner wasn't asking for help. He was distancing himself from the bike so that failure wouldn't stick to his name. When he crashed, bike's fault. When he faded late in the race, electronics. When his illness sidelined him, bike stress. Every interview became a shield of self-preservation and a dagger toward the team. The tension grew until it became irreversible. Ducati trusted him. They worshipped him. They believed he would restore them to glory. But Stoner lost patience with the machine and made sure the world knew the bike was the problem, not him. What made it selfish wasn't wasn't the criticism. Riders criticize all the time. It was the public nature, the frequency, the tone, and the timing. A team fighting for confidence instead got headlines calling their bike a disaster. By season's end, both sides were exhausted, emotionally drained, and politically fractured. Ducati still loved him. Fans still adored him. But the spiritual bond between rider and factory had been cut by months of deflection, and it all stemmed from one core truth. Stoner wasn't going to carry the blame for anything, not even when the team needed unity the most. Valentino Rossi versus Marc Marquez. MotoGP has seen dirty passes, aggressive dives, paint-swapping wars. But there has only been one moment where a rider consciously turned a world championship fight into a personal vendetta in real time. Sepang 2015 Rossi versus Marquez had been brewing since Assen, muttering since Australia, and exploding in the press conference days before the race. Rossi accused Marquez of interfering in his title fight. Marquez smirked. Lorenzo watched with a grin. Sepang Sunday wasn't a race. It was a boiling point. From lap 1, it was personal. Marquez stuck to Rossi like a parasite. He dived, blocked, slowed, accelerated, anything to inflame the doctor. Rossi snapped. On lap 7, the world saw a sight no one believed possible. Valentino Rossi, the smiling superhero, the global icon, slowed his bike mid-corner, turned his helmet, looked Marquez in the eyes, and ran him wide. Not racing wide, not defensive wide, but you're not staying on this bike wide. Marquez fell. The crowd gasped. The sport froze. Rossi rode away as if nothing happened. The paddock exploded within minutes. 2 hours later, race direction confirmed what everyone already knew. Rossi had crossed the line. He received 3 penalty points, enough to force him to start the Valencia finale from last place. A punishment so severe, it effectively killed his title chances. And that's what made the moment selfish. Rossi sacrificed his own championship to punish someone he felt wronged by. Instead of choosing the cold logic of points, he chose the heat of revenge. The greatest rider of all time decided that his fury mattered more than his 10th crown. That lesson, that ego can overpower even the biggest career goals, became the lasting scar of Sepang 2015.